beautiful primroses growing amongst grass here. Nothing quite says spring like primroses. Let's pickle them. This book, A Country Harvest by Pamela Michael, is possibly one of my most prized possessions. I've had this book for many years. It's sadly out of print now, but you can still sometimes pick up copies of it on eBay or other second-hand markets. This is a book full of kind of foraging, but also country wisdom type of lore. This has got a load of old recipes and discussion of country ways. And this is the book that really got me out the door and got me started foraging in reality. I've had a lifelong interest in wild plants, and I've always been eating things from the wild, blackberries in particular, all my life. But this is the one that really got me interested in trying to forage some other things many, many years ago. Anyway, and so I keep on coming back to this book because it's not only really good about all of the things that are available in the British countryside, but it's got some fantastic old recipes in it. Very old recipes. Anyway, the page on primroses, that's actually a cowslip, but it's related. The page on primroses has got an interesting recipe for pickled primroses. So this says, a recipe from the English housewife, 1615, gives instructions for preserving primroses to make a sharp, sweet pickle to eat with salads. The colour of the flowers is almost intensified, and they look beautiful in a small glass dish from which a teaspoonful is enough with each helping of salad. As primrose flowers are a precious ingredient of spring and are becoming increasingly rare, I suggest you only pick the flowers where they grow abundantly, and then only take enough for 1 or 2 tiny jars, such as the little glass jars in which dried herbs are sold. That is a really good point that she makes there. Obviously, if you were to try to pick a lot of primrose flowers from the wild, it would be quite destructive probably, because whilst they're not exactly rare, they're not often found in huge abundance, and so it would be irresponsible to go out into the woods and pick every primrose flower you could find that day. I don't think it would be technically illegal to do that, because the Countryside Act does allow you to pick fruits, flowers and foliage. As long as it's not an endangered species or a protected species, you can go and pick flowers and things in general, even if you don't own the land. But I just think it would be a little bit irresponsible to go and pick a huge number of primroses from a wild environment. So I've been curious about this recipe since I first saw it, but I haven't made it until now because I didn't want to go and pick them from the wild. Anyway, here's the old recipe. After they've been picked clean from their stalks and the white ends clean cut away and washed and dried, and taking a glass pot like a galley pot, or for want thereof, a galley pot itself, and first strew a little crushed white sugar in the bottom, lay a layer of the flour, then cover that layer over with sugar, then another layer of flowers and another of sugar, and do this one above the other until the pot do be filled, and ever and anon pressing them down hard with your hand. This done, you shall take the best and sharpest vinegar you can get, and if the vinegar be distilled vinegar, the flowers will keep their colour the better, and with it fill up your pot till the vinegar swim aloft, then stop up the pot close and set it in a dry and temperate place. So Pamela goes on, the instructions are explicit for such an early recipe. Use distilled white vinegar and caster sugar. Just a light sprinkling of sugar between each layer of flowers is enough. Store in a dark cupboard to preserve the colour. Well, as I say, I've never made this before because I didn't want to go and pick a vast number of primrose flowers from the wild. However, there is a solution. So I'm very fortunate to have a neighbour who loves his garden as much as, perhaps even more than I love mine, but also has a lawn absolutely full of beautiful primroses this spring. He's been very kind enough to say that I can pick as many of these flowers as I want. Now, you might think it's a bit of a shame to go and pick these primroses, but he's got to mow the lawn at some point, and they've already had a chance to seed a little bit, and they're obviously doing very well. So I don't think anybody's going to endanger these primroses by picking a few flowers. And this is my chance to pick enough primrose flowers without picking them from the wild to be able to make Primrose Pickle from that book. So let's get cracking with the picking. So I do just want the petals, which is like that bit, out of the calyx of the flower. This is going to take me a little while, but I'm going to try and fill up this tub. Now the recipe in the book says you should wash the flowers. I'm not going to be doing that today because
well, it poured it down with rain in the night, so I think that's as good as any wash I could give them. And this is a very lush, verdant lawn, so there's no exposed soil here to splash up on the flowers. So I think any rationale there could be for needing to wash the flowers has been already dealt with. I'm going to take a few from each plant so that we don't end up destroying what beautiful, picturesque flowers there are here. Notice there are some pink ones in there. These have hybridized with cultivated forms of polyanthus and produced these pink hybrids. There are some white ones as well. So there's a variety of colours here, not entirely natural. Well, actually they are entirely natural, because the mutation that produces this pink colour is just something that happens. So you will, even when you're way out in the wilderness, in the wilds, sometimes find a pink or white, occasionally sort of bluish purple primrose. Pheasant there in the background. I always think pheasants sound a bit broken. Well, this is going to take a while, I think. Okay, well, I think we are nearing a full container of these primrose flowers now, and the picking I've done has barely made a difference. But we are going to have to stop now because the wind is blowing up and I keep losing them out of this tub. But also, I really only need enough of these to make a taste, because I don't suppose this is going to be the kind of pickle that I want to come back and make a kilo of, because that would take a lifetime. They are very pretty, aren't they? And as I say, barely made a dent in what's here. Sadly, these are all going to be mown down in the next few days, because this is a lawn, not a meadow. But the plants are perennial, so it's not like it will kill them. It will just, they'll probably come back and flower again this spring. And spring flowering plants like this often produce seed very fast. So often the seed that is produced by spring flowering plants will ripen and start to germinate within a very short space of pollination, so days or a small number of weeks. And so I'm not sure if that's true of primroses. I suspect it is, because I think the seeds are tiny and I think they probably germinate when they're fresh. So mowing them down will break open some of those seed capsules, and probably actually he'll have even more primroses here next year. Anyway, let's get these home now and get on with the pickling. So we've got our primrose flowers here, freshly picked, and now I've got to pickle them. And as if picking them wasn't laborious enough, the instructions also state that we've got to cut off the tubes from the flowers. Man, this is fiddly. Might have been better on a drier day, because these flowers are ever so slightly clammy just where they've had a bit of dew and rainfall on them. But we are to put layers of flowers in a jar, or gallipot as the instructions say. Gallipot was a term for a stoneware or earthenware vessel, a jar. I suppose probably similar to those Hartley's marmalade pots that we found fragments of on the beachcombing videos. This really is fiddly. I do wonder sometimes if these old recipes, some of these really old-fashioned recipes, might have been pranks. Because seriously, who's got time to do this? I suppose if you've got servants, they've got time to do this. So we put a layer of flowers in them, like so, and press them down as best we can. And then we sprinkle with white sugar. It doesn't say how much. I'm using caster sugar. Just a kind of sprinkling of sugar on those flowers. And then we go for another layer. So the idea is, for now, we put layers of flowers and layers of sugar in this jar. I don't have a gallipot, but I've got some pickling jars of various different sizes. I've gone for a fairly small one because I want to fill it up. And these petals have almost no substance to them.
It doesn't say anything about single layers of flowers. I can't imagine that we'd need sugar between individual petals. I mean, they are undeniably beautiful flowers, and it does seem a shame to be destroying them like this. But, you know, perhaps this is a way of preserving that beautiful spring floral display for later in the year. We shall see. So whenever I'm doing a process like this, I do start to think about, okay, is there a way to optimize this? And it's certainly true that picking the flowers up by that stem that we're cutting off and then snipping them straight in is better at this point. However, I think the efficiency is lost in the faff of actually trying to pick up the flowers by that stalk. I didn't weigh the quantity of flowers here because the method here doesn't really rely on any specific weights, and also because I don't have any scales that would give us a very reliable or very precise measurement of something so diaphanous as these petals. I am also being careful because in amongst picking all of these flowers, we've got some little flower beetles have turned up, so I'll make sure that they get back to the outside safely. But as I put each flower in there, I'm inspecting them, so I'm making sure that I'm not adding beetles to the pickle. Not that I'm particularly squeamish about eating insects, but because I don't desire to unnecessarily pickle a beetle. So I was wondering if I needed a bigger jar than this, but I have a feeling that the entire amount I've picked in that tub is going to pack down into this tiny jar. Special occasion pickle, I think, because we're not making a huge amount of it here. And I can't imagine that it's going to have, maybe something develops in the pickling process, but primrose flowers don't seem to have much scent. I did eat one the other day in a salad. I put some flowers on a salad to make it look a bit pretty and evoke thoughts of spring. And eating primrose flowers raw like that, they are not toxic, but it was approximately similar to eating a piece of paper towel. Don't ask me how I know what that's like. But yeah, so I don't know that the flowers really have any distinctive flavour or aroma qualities of their own, but we shall see. I suspect the charm of this pickle might be partly the whimsy of it, and it might just be a case of the sugar that we've added and the vinegar we're going to add is what makes the pickle. You may be wondering why I didn't pick some of those pink primroses as well, for a bit of variety of colour. But I don't know how colour fast these petals are. I don't know how much of this colour might wash out into the vinegar, might kind of infuse out into the vinegar, and maybe the pink even more so. And so if we did that with a mixture of pink and yellow petals, we might end up with just something that looks really kind of muddy in colour. So I'm going to go for just the yellow, which is what the traditional recipe is calling for anyway. Now, some of the petals did actually come off and leave the tube behind in the flower, so maybe it's possible to pick them in such a way. Maybe just pinch them with your fingernails or something as you're picking them and just pick off the petals. Didn't think of doing that, at least not on purpose. Don't imagine this is going to be something I make every year, or indeed ever again, but hopefully this will be enough to satisfy my curiosity about this peculiar pickle. Now we have got a number of little passengers here, so I'll just shake them off into this container of stalks, and then this can go on the garden. So we're nearly at the end of the packing process here, and I think what I might try to do is just create a little gap down the side of the jar here and just see if we can slip a primrose down there facing out. Then it might be a little bit more obvious what the pickle is. Right, so there we go. That's the last one with the flowers in there, barring some random bits of grass and these stalks and damaged flowers. So that tub of primrose flowers has all packed down into there. Obviously taking the stalks off has helped with that. So another little sprinkle of sugar and then vinegar, and the recipe says use your sourest vinegar. So this is distilled malt vinegar. You're just going to pour enough of that over there to completely immerse those petals. Now there will be some little voids in there, so I'm just going to give it a press down to expel air bubbles. So quite a faff to prepare, but in terms of the components of this pickle, that's got to be one of the simpler ones I've made. Now, I've got to make sure that the flowers stay underneath the vinegar. So I'm going to use a lid from a different jar, just as a weight to keep those down, and seal it up. And now we've just got to wait for that to pickle. I've got to put that somewhere dark, or else we lose the colour. Any exposure to sunlight or bright light will probably fade the colour of those petals. So I've got to put that in a dark place, and then we'll try Primrose Pickle. Okay, so the time has come for the tasting of this peculiar Primrose Pickle. Now it's worth mentioning this has not been maturing at all really. This has only been a day or two since I made this. However, I don't know. There are no specific instructions on how long to keep this before you try it. A lot of traditional pickles, especially if they've got spices and a lot of ingredients, do need a maturing time for various bits of chemistry to take place in the pickle. However, this has only got 3 ingredients, so it may well be that this is not intended to be a maturing pickle, but is rather just a way of preserving these delicate flowers. To be used, I think, as probably a garnish in, well, the book says salads. I don't normally have pickle on salad, but anyway, I don't think the pickle tongs are actually going to help here. So I've got some lettuce leaves here with a little bit of carrot and celery and cauliflower on them, just as a salad. There's no other dressing on these. So just as a way of really testing out this pickle. I've also got a slice of cheese on a cracker, because pickle with cheese and crackers is how I would normally expect to enjoy any kind of pickle. So there's not much on that one, is there? So there we go, Primrose Pickle. I'm going to put a little bit on the side of the plate because I'll taste it just on its own as well. I'll get the lid back on so that we don't get oxidation of the flowers. Oh, it's worth mentioning actually the vinegar in here has infused with the yellow colour from the flowers, just a little bit. So I think I was right in not mixing up those 2 colours of flowers. So some little delicate bites of salad with Primrose Pickle. Here we go. Now that's interesting. I feel that there is something going on there that's more than just sugar and vinegar. When I tasted these flowers raw, they were completely tasteless and had the texture of a paper towel. But when they're pickled like this, well, I'm just going to try a bit on its own to see if I can discern any other flavours in there. Yes, there are other flavours in there. I would say apple. Texture's still a little bit fibrous, but it's the fragrant notes of apple rather than the kind of just main apple flavour. It's the aroma of apples, that kind of appley scent, rather than just the acidity and sweetness of apples. Although, of course, there is acidity and sweetness here as well because there's vinegar and sugar in this. That's actually rather good. Definitely works on a salad. Okay, so now on cheese and crackers. So I've got a cracker with a bit of Wensleydale and some of this Primrose Pickle. Yeah, it does work. That's interesting. I really didn't expect quite so much from this pickle. I expected this to be a bit of a novelty, but there is a flavour there that's quite delicate. As I say, it's apple-like, but there are other little notes of aroma in there that I can't quite pin down. I'm actually surprised and impressed by this. So there we go, that was Primrose Pickle. Definitely well worth making, and if I can get access to primrose flowers again next year, I probably will make another batch of this next year. Definitely something to enjoy in springtime. I hope this has been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.